Yeah, I know leagues are open, but by demand, you guys wanted us to finish out the team previews. So we've got 7 to go. And after this one, we will have 6. Welcome to the Indiana Pacers episode of Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm Dan Vespris. Like, rate, subscribe. I can't get over how much stuff is on my shirt. This is crazy. What got spilled on this thing? I must wash it. Should have changed in between recording the 2 episodes, other than just my hat. Also, drop a 5-star review. Here's the Pacers. They went 50-32 last year, but obviously this coming season is going to be very different. They are without Tyrese Haliburton, the engine, the motor, the everything to what that team accomplished last year. Haliburton was the number 5 player in fantasy basketball. After a slow start, he became one of the easiest buy low candidates of all time, and then blew a tire at the very, very end of a playoff run. Oh, the pain. Game 7. Man, that really sucks. The reason I throw Haliburton's name up on the screen is not because there's anything for you guys to really do with it, other than if you're in some sort of keeper league where you can squat on a guy, you could draft him at literally any time after the 3rd round, sit on him for a year and have yourself a value the following season. But boy, does that suck. And it's hard to know whether he'll ever quite be the same again. This is a guy who was a master of efficiency in almost every respect. And if you lose a little bit of your speed, not that he was like lightning quick, but in any event, sad news on the Haliburton front. But we move on from that because, one door closes and opens a window and so on and so forth. And that window right now belongs to the point guards in Indiana, of which we have 2. This gentleman, Andrew Nembhard, is certainly the leader in the clubhouse for guy that's going to take over the starting point guard job for Tyrese Haliburton. But at the same time, Andrew Nembhard does not have the world's most friendly fantasy game. He kind of had like a coming out party in the playoffs a couple of years ago, and his minutes have been consistently solid pretty much since that time. One thing to note is that he took more threes during the Pacers postseason run than he did during the regular season. In 33.5 minutes during the Pacers playoff run, he made about 1.7 3-pointers. During the regular season, he only hit 0.8, despite the minutes only going up by about 4. So can we point to the playoffs and say maybe that's a little bit more of what we can expect out of Nembhard? I certainly hope so. Steals also very high during the postseason. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that we need to think about with this Pacers team. And that's with respect to Nembhard and with respect to anybody. This could end up as a bit of a throwaway year. They lost Miles Turner to free agency. They didn't really get a replacement center. They have a collection of replacement centers, but they don't have anybody close to the Miles Turner level of ability. And then with Haliburton, he's the guy that makes the offense go. This team could end up kind of bad this year. So that's something you have to think about. And when you're moving towards whatever your final decision is on Nembhard and any Pacer, do you think they're going to play during your fantasy playoffs? So I would kind of call the Pacers a roto gold mine and a head-to-head landmine. Because at least in roto, whatever you get out of all these guys we're going to talk about today, you bank it. You put it in your treasure chest, and even if they're useless in March and April, I don't want to say who cares, because you'd still like them to play the final 6 weeks, final 4 weeks, final 3 weeks, whatever. But your roto team will be fine if you lose, let's just hypothetically say Nembhard, because that's who we're talking about, for the final dozen games or so, or whatever. Now, the problems with Nembhard that we've talked about, the low 3-pointers, that's one of them. He's not a terrific foul shooter, 79, 80, and then 79. So, like, fine, but not helpful. He doesn't rebound almost at all. The assists are fine and presumably will go up. The turnovers will probably go up as well. The steals will probably stay about the same. And then he's not really, well, he wasn't asked to be a primary scorer. Again, slightly better during the playoffs, but like, how does this usage situation get rectified? It's also kind of important to note that for all of Haliburton's insane efficiency and big assist numbers, he wasn't a particularly high usage point guard. So yes, you're putting open, available ball handling back into the bucket, but it's not like Trae Young is out. Haliburton shared the wealth with Miles Turner. Pascal Siakam, was actually the highest usage player on the team. He was the guy that when he touched it, he was going to go do something with it. Haliburton, ball mover, ball swinger, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, like he's the initiator, but everything's going to be different. I think Nembhard's probably going to get a little bit overdrafted, would be my guess, just because there's this assumption that he steps into a large enough role that he sort of becomes like a Tyrese Haliburton light. And I just don't think that's the case. His field goal percent is, well, it was very good last year, but then kind of fell back a bit this season. So I would argue probably not as good as Haliburton's. The steals, probably not quite as good. The blocks, certainly not as good. The free throw percent, not as good. The assists won't be as good. I do think Nembhard probably wedges his way inside the top 100, getting the sort of extra stuff that's going to be available. But let's not go crazy. You know, I'd rather try to get him as kind of like that first round of flyers. But now I got to pull up the number because I wrote it all down. Where was Nembhard? Andrew Nembhard was, because we got the first round of Yahoo ranks out there. He's pre-ranked 71. That's expensive. I mean, Kobe White is right next to him, and Kobe White is way safer this year than Nembhard. Miles Turner's right next to him. OG Anunoby, Rudy Gobert, John Collins, Devin Vassell. Like, these guys that I'm listing off right now are ranked behind him. And I get it. Nembhard, there's upside there because we don't know exactly what he's going to be. But the holes that we've seen in his fantasy game that I don't think are going to magically disappear, that's going to keep him from getting above that next threshold. So, you know, this is a guy that I think has top 75 potential, but if he's going at 71, to me, that's too expensive. And we'll see what happens over the course of draft season. But right now, it seems like he's probably going too high. On the flip side, as we move to our next name on the list, that's TJ McConnell, who won't play as much as Nembhard, but does more fantasy-wise with the minutes he's got on the board, on the floor. Mind you, by the way, our friends over at FanDuel, an official partner of us here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball and the Believe Network, FanDuel Sports has the Pacers regular season win total at 37.5. And money's relatively split so far. The under getting a little bit more action, and I would lean that way as well. The lack of Haliburton and the lack of Miles Turner, that's really big. And then more than anything, like if they're not in the thick of it, I don't see a huge reason to push for this team. This feels like a little bit of a throwaway season. So I would lean towards the under from that FanDuel number at 37.5, if that's what you guys are thinking along. Dano likes the under. Now, TJ McConnell is an intriguing one because there's still, even with Haliburton now, there's still no guarantee that he actually gets to play full starters minutes. In fact, I don't think he will. But it's worth noting that in that last playoff game, and we don't have that many examples of Haliburton missing games last year. He was pretty damn good during the regular season, only missed 9. But that last playoff game, McConnell played 28 minutes. He had 16 points, 6 boards, only 3 assists, weirdly, 7 turnovers because the Thunder are insane, but a steal and a block, and he did it on 8 out of 13 shooting. That's the magic of TJ McConnell. He can post, and he didn't this year because he only got 18 minutes a game, but we've seen him post fantasy value in like 21 minutes a night. I think he got pretty damn close to that last year. No, what was he at the prior season? 18 minutes. Let's find the last time that McConnell actually. So he's been in Indy longer than I realized. The years, they flash by. He was a usage behemoth last year and his 18 minutes on the court. He was number 153 in that run at 1 steal a game. You go back to the prior year, he was number 159. That's in about 20 minutes. Let's keep going back. Let's see if we can figure out last time McConnell, 24 minutes, he still didn't get there. How's that possible? 26 minutes he got there. In any event, so it does feel a little bit like the McConnell stuff is tied pretty tight to the steals, which were higher earlier in his career. Teams have kind of figured out his BS. But boy, if he got to 24 minutes this season, you got to believe that he'll have fantasy value, because it's not 24 minutes backing up Haliburton anymore. It's 24 minutes alongside or backing up Andrew Nembhard. So the assists, I would think, would be between 5 and 6. The steals, I hope, would get up to like 1.3-ish if he was playing 24 minutes. Rebounds will stay somewhat low. Field goal percent is always good. Free throw is kind of meh. Obviously, you prefer Nembhard because he's going to play full starters minutes and he's going to get shots up and he's going to have the ball in his hand and all that stuff. But if you're looking for like a very, very late take a shot kind of guy, you can't do a whole lot better than McConnell. Third wave of Flyers. We're talking about guys that are like outside the top 130. And where the hell is he ranked right now? TJ McConnell is 177 in Yahoo's pre-rank. So down there where, you know, you're debating between Jeremy Grant, who you know is going to be a pain in the butt all year, or like Karis LeVert, who you know his fantasy game is just not going to translate unless he's the lead scorer. You might as well just go with McConnell at that point. I mean, we'll probably have other preferred third-tier Flyers, but I don't know, man. Like, what if you could get 10 points, 5.5 assists, and 1.3 steals out of your 12th round pick? I would probably do it. Let's move out of the point guard realm for the first time on today's show, and instead let's talk about Pascal Siakam, who has been one of the most reliable players in all of fantasy basketball for many seasons running now. Basically, he got derailed by the 2 COVID years. But prior to that, he had missed 1 game, 2 games. And then coming out of the COVID years, he missed 14, 11, 2, and 4. When he can play, he plays. That's the story. You know, the 2 COVID years and then even the one right after it, those were the only ones where you could see the little blip with Pascal Siakam. He played 78 out of 82 games last year, averaged 20 points, 7 boards, 3.5 assists. He's always drafted right around 50. He always ends up right around 50. It's perfectly reasonable. The fear with Siakam on the head-to-head side, at least, is, again, is he going to play the final month of the season? I don't know if Indy's going to remain competitive that long. If you end your season 3 weeks early, odds are he will at least start your fantasy playoffs, but I don't know if he's going to finish them. And that's where the nerves creep in a little bit. But again, no Haliburton. And when Haliburton was kind of finding himself the first 2 months of the year, Siakam was great. He kind of faded a bit the second half of the year when he was outside the top 60. And the last 2 months, he was outside the top 100. That was when Aaron Nesmith started doing more. And obviously Tyrese Haliburton started doing a bunch more. But Siakam was a beast at the beginning of the year. So again, it kind of comes back to this roto goldmine, head-to-head landmine sort of thing. Do you trust Siakam to make it through your head-to-head playoffs? I mean, you're going to have to spend a 5th rounder on, probably a 4th rounder on him this year, wouldn't you think? Because everybody's going to assume that he's doing more. He's actually pre-ranked in the 3rd round. That's too pricey for me. It's too much risk there at the end of the season. In a throwaway year for the Pacers, I don't know how I grab a 3rd rounder. They might make it through the year. He might. He may end up being a 3rd rounder all season long. But, by the way, the guys pre-ranked around him are Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell, Chet Holmgren. These are the guys you're debating with Pascal Siakam. If you're taking Siakam there, you got big stones and you're hunting for something that I don't see. Now, if as draft season progresses and he starts to taper off back into that previously scheduled Siakam range of, 45 to 55, I would at least give him a look there because the per game will probably exceed that, even if the games played number is not quite as good as seasons past. So for me, Fourth round would be the earliest I would take Siakam. I'm not getting him in the third round, and we'll see how things develop. Let's go to Aaron Nesmith, who put together a great second half this past year. And again, not really much talked about. He averaged 15 points, 4.5 boards, 2.5 threes, a steal, an assist on 52-92 splits. Wowzers. That's impressive stuff. But here's the thing. Since Nesmith has kind of found himself over the last 2 years, he's been a pretty efficient scorer. The free throw number was the exceptional mark this year. Prior to that, he'd been, low 80s for the most part. So I don't know that we can expect 90s to stick, but that's 2 seasons in a row that Nesmith has been around 50% from the field. He's a 3-and-D guy, and if you gave him full starters minutes, which is, even the final 2 months where he was playing really well, he was still only playing 28 minutes a game. I've got to think that number goes up a little bit. He was top 70 with those big percentages. Throw the Turner and the Haliburton stuff back into the bucket. And yeah, I don't think he's going to be a guy who takes the lion's share of it, but it sure feels like he's not going to lose usage in all of this puzzle fitting. Again, will he play down the stretch? Anybody's guess, but he's probably not a feature piece on your team. And because of that, his draft slot is going to be much lower. He's a guy that I would assume is going to go pretty late in drafts. Even though it sure seems like he's going to be a starter on this club. Am I missing something obvious? He was a starter last year, and they lost 2 starters. I think they're more worried about replacing the 2 starters they lost. Starting 5 for the Pacers down the stretch last year was Siakam was, and Miles Turner, Nembhard, Haliburton, and Nesmith. Those are the 5 guys. And the bench mob was Benedict Mathurin, who filled in for Nesmith for a long time during the middle of last year. Obi Toppin, TJ McConnell. These were the guys coming off the bench. They're going to be picking through some of these guys to replace Miles Turner. Well, there's some other names, and Isaiah Jackson is on that list as well, to replace Miles Turner and Haliburton. Like, they don't have time to think about trying to replace Aaron Nesmith. So I expect Nesmith to start. I think he'll get around 30 minutes a game, and I think he's got a path to get inside that top 100. So again, not a massive upside play because I don't think he's about to go take 13, 14 shots, but maybe he can get to 10.5 or 11 a game. And on good efficiency, that could get him inside the top 80. And that's a guy you're looking for in kind of the second tier of Flyers. And right now, you can easily get him there. So that was Aaron Nesmith. Let's go to the guy who likely slides into the starting 5. The first, really, I think that we can feel somewhat confident in saying he'll get in there, and that's Benedict Mathurin, who has a terrific fantasy game if the only category you care about is free throws. Mathurin is a guy who is not shy about shooting, but that's really all he does. Last season, and I like to look at the second half of the year, but his numbers are not that different, first half and second half. Mathurin was number 181 in 30 minutes a game. He took 12 shots in those 30 minutes, so he wasn't bashful about it. Only Siakam and Haliburton were taking more shots in their time on the court, but only 1.5 threes, 5 boards. I guess that's okay. Doesn't get steals, doesn't get blocks, doesn't shoot the ball that way from the field. He's a 5 free throw a game dude on mid-80s clip. That's your winning mark with Mathurin. He is also, in my opinion, likely to get overdrafted because of the likely starting gig. When Benedict was filling in for Aaron Nesmith, it's been like the same story on loop for Mathurin for a couple seasons in a row now, in that he slides in when someone gets hurt. He puts up good numbers for about 3 weeks, and then reality sets in. He's not about to become a better rebounder or passer or steal guy or block guy. I don't think he's going to start taking more 3-pointers per minute, but, maybe. We saw it with Anthony Edwards. Maybe Mathurin starts taking more threes. Like, he was already playing 30 minutes a game. Yeah, you can probably shovel another shot or 2 on top of him. And sure, finding a guy that could average 18 to 20 points a game late in your draft isn't easy. But this dude's going in the 7th round. there are these huge expectations for the Pacers fill-in guys, and I don't see it with Mathurin. I don't. Points and free throw percent are likely to be his only two positive fantasy contributions. Rebounds will be kind of neutral. I would assume threes, assists, steals, blocks, field goal percent. Those are all going to be negatives. Those are all going to be sub-average, is a better way to put it. So no way. No chance I'm taking Mathurin in the 7th round. No chance. Like some of the guys behind him, we just talked about the guys that are behind Andrew Nembhard, who I think I would rather have over Mathurin by more than the whatever it is, 7 or 8 slots that are separating them right now. Guys that are behind Benedict Mathurin, I mean, Jalen Suggs, Peyton Pritchard, Jakob Poeltl, Mark Williams, Khalil Ware, Freddie Van Vliet, Devin Vassell, John Collins, Tobias Harris, Naz Reid, Christian Brown, Tumani Kamara. Like, I'll give you 20 names that I think are going to be better than him in fantasy this year. I'm not a big Mathurin guy in 9 category leagues, and him in the starting 5 doesn't really change that a lot, at least for me. Now we get into the last sort of weirdness on this club, and that's the center battle. And what we think happens here is probably end result, a timeshare. But this is part of why that Pacers FanDuel win total is only 37.5. Again, our buddies over at FanDuel, proud partner of us here on the Old Man Squad fantasy basketball show. I don't know why I called it that in the Believe Network. That number at 37.5, yeah, it's a big drop-off from where they were last year at 50 wins. But Haliburton and Miles Turner, like these are 2 of the top 3 most important players on the roster. And they didn't, at least with Haliburton, you could argue that they have some kind of backup. Like at least they have Nembhard and McConnell as backup point guard type players. They didn't. Thomas Bryant was the backup center last year. Because Isaiah Jackson got hurt partway through the year. They have 4 backup level centers on this team. You might even argue more. They have Tony Bradley, Jay Huff, Isaiah Jackson, James Wiseman, and you could maybe say Obi Toppin might play a little bit of backup 5. By the way, I'd love to see Obi Toppin get a bunch of minutes because he's pretty damn efficient when he's out there. I just can't imagine that he's going to get, like, we'd love to see him do more, but a lot of his success was because he was able to run with Tyrese Haliburton. Toppin's not going to play a ton. And I don't think he's going to play a ton of center, but even if he did, I don't think it's going to matter all that much. He'll have some stretches in there. If Siakam gets some days off, that's when you want to look at Obi Toppin. But let's see if we can figure out what's going on at center. So remember, Isaiah Jackson blew a tire. What game was that last year? That was 5 games into the season. Wasn't it a torn Achilles? Was it a torn calf? Torn calf or torn Achilles? Isaiah Jackson missed the rest of the year. My guess is that he's probably good to go on opening night, but what does that even really mean? Like, starter on opening night? I doubt it. Will they bring him along somewhat carefully? Probably. But they did also sign him to a 3-year extension. So the Pacers are locking him up in the hopes that they can kind of continue to develop Jackson as part of this center contingent. Jay Huff was the guy they brought in who had like 3 weeks of really interesting production in Memphis and then pretty much stopped playing. He's probably the starter at the beginning of the year. I don't know how long that holds. Possibly until Isaiah Jackson is deemed healthy enough to take the job back, or maybe Huff starts the whole year and they just split the minutes. And Huff gets 20 and Jackson gets 20 and 8 go to small ball centers like Siakam and Toppin. Or maybe Wiseman plays a little bit. It feels like a real messy mess at the center spot for Indiana. Now, I will reserve the right to change my opinion when we get to the preseason, which, I would expect that Isaiah Jackson will be moving very slowly at that point as he continues to work his way back. And so, if anything, the preseason would probably make us lean more towards Jay Huff. But also, one of the things we saw with Huff last year was an unsustainable block and 3-point rate, because he came bursting onto the scene at the beginning of the year. He was blocking 2 shots a game, and he was hitting 2 3-pointers a night. And then eventually that stuff tapered off. Like, then he started to block, because he was blocking 2, 3, 4 shots in like 16 minutes a night. That was not going to stick. It slowly came down. Then it was some 1s, then some 0s. And by the end, it was a much more sort of reasonable and expected number. He was about 1 block in about 12 minutes per game. I don't think he's one of those players, like young Mitchell Robinson, where you might extend the minutes a bunch more, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the number of blocks is going to move linearly. He was just out there on skates trying to block everything in his 15 minutes of ball game. If somebody asks him to play 22 minutes and stay out of foul trouble, he's not going to block 2.5 shots. It'll go up from 0.9 because he'll just be on the floor double, but it might go up to like 1.3 or 1.4. Is that enough? If he plays 20 minutes, is it enough for Jay Huff to have sustained fantasy value? You could probably get him to like 9, 10 points over a block and somewhere short of 2 3-pointers, but he doesn't rebound very much. And we're sort of like hunting for things in there. If he's the starter, I think you should use your last pick on him. We're talking about Jay Huff, we're talking about TJ McConnell. These are guys that you can kind of use your last pick on. I feel like it seems at least like Isaiah Jackson would be the guy that they'd rather build around. They paid him more. Jay Huff is on a 2-year, 3-year, like $8 million deal, something extremely small. Jackson, they gave $7 million a year for the next 3 seasons. So that's the guy that they trust more. And they gave Obi Toppin a bunch of money. Like, odds are you probably just don't need to draft any of those guys. Like, if you were going to pick one last dude to collect, your last round pick, your 13th rounder, and you were picking between Toppin, McConnell, Isaiah Jackson, Jay Huff. Am I forgetting anybody there? That's probably the list. I'd probably go McConnell for the point guard stuff. And then whoever the starting center is would be my second choice. But I don't know that you have to. This feels like the end of the world Flyers, these guys, where McConnell's one little baby click above them. By the way, I have Neesmith another click above that. But Isaiah Jackson, Jay Huff, Obi Toppin, these are guys where all 3 of them could end up playing 20 minutes a night, and that would mean that none really locks in fantasy value. And we've seen this so many times with Rick Carlisle and the Pacers. He's going to mix and match. It's extraordinarily annoying for fantasy basketball players, but it works, and he gets more wins out of his teams because of it, because he's very good at that. But it's super annoying, and he's not going to change unless it stopped working, which it hasn't. And this is also a season with no expectations. So even if it doesn't work this year, I don't think anything's going to change. So Neesmith is going to play a bunch. Siakam's going to play a bunch. Nembhard is going to play a bunch. Mathurin is going to play a bunch of minutes, although I don't trust Mathurin's fantasy game. And then you're going to get a bunch of guys scrambling for what's left. And as I mentioned, right now, McConnell would be, to me, the most interesting of that bunch if he can clear 21, 22, 23 minutes. Honestly, even more so than Benedict Mathurin, who I think is going to be a vast underperformer. Then probably Huff, unless Jackson gets a starting job out of the chute, in which case then it would be him. And then I'd put Toppin over whoever the backup center is, because you'll see Siakam miss some games, and Obi's sort of weirdly versatile as fantasy games go. But boy, it's to me, it's a little bit of a dumpster of a year, and don't be surprised if the Pacers treat it as such. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hit that subscribe button on the way out. That's a big one, no matter how you're taking in the content. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, whatever. Drop a 5-star review on the pods. Hit the like button on the YouTubes. And we'll try to do the final 6 team breakdowns in between more draft content. I'm Dan for the Old Man Squad. I'll catch you guys on the other side.